Raid Shadow Legends. We have some new champions to go over, and some of these champions are really amazing. We have 14 new champions, a lot of legendaries, and we're going to get after it right now. Let's go into these. Let's go into Demon Spawn. They are my favorite so far out of all these champions here. Here's a brand new one, Tyrant LAmour. He has quite a few different abilities. It's pretty amazing. So he does his damage based off of defense, and whatever damage he does on a skill 1, attacks one enemy, heals by 25% of the damage inflicted, 50% of the damage inflicted if there's an HP burn debuff up. Then his skill 2 actually does an AoE decreased defense burn, 100% chance to apply it for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So in spiders, this guy's going to be a monster. Clan boss, he's even going to be a monster because he also has ally protection and then places an increased defense on all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So this guy can protect, he can do AoE burns, and then he can do a single target where he heals himself if there's a burn up for even more. And then also if there's an HP burn on the enemy, they deal 10% less damage. That could actually be quite a lot on the clan boss. That could be a lot in a lot of places with this carry here, this ally protect and the increased defense. Not necessarily for the clan boss, this part, but for anything else in the game, this is going to be pretty big. And then also his aura is a 25% HP increase. Now, don't go off of anything that this ever says right here for what kind of champion this is, because this champion does damage off of defense. I don't know why it says HP here. I never go off of these. These don't make any sense. They should actually take all those away. I think it would be better for the game. So he has high HP, he has high defense. We're not talking Valkyrie high defense, but it is still really high. This guy looks like he's going to be a lot of fun, and I would still like to even try him on the clan boss just to see, because you know you're going to do good damage on defense base. He's going to heal himself. Maybe he won't need lifesteal, and he can always apply the HP burn. Not optimal for clan boss, maybe, depending on if this drops 10%. You know, could be something, but you could at least use him there. Everywhere else in the game, though, he's going to be a monster. He's going to be a lot of fun to play with. Who else do we have? We have another one over here, the Duchess Lilitu. She looks pretty cool. She's an old, I guess, maybe different horns here, and the wings is very cool. But she also has some pretty cool moves. So her aura is 19% increased speed in all battles. Then her skill 1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Places a shield buff equal to 10% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns on this champion and the ally with the lowest HP. And her damage, again, is based off of defense. So she has really high HP. You can see it here. She's got good defense again because she does damage based off of defense. But her HP is high so that she can do this shield for herself of 10%. And then shield the lowest ally for 10% of her HP as well. I think that's going to be really nice. That's going to be, this is whenever she does her skill 1, it can help out a lot. And then on her skill 2, she places a 50% increased attack buff and block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. And then places perfect veil buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. So with perfect veil, they can do what? They can do an attack and still stay within veil. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy on a 4-turn cooldown. You get that for your allies for 2 turns. That's pretty good. Of course, all bosses are going to AoE. It's not going to help with bosses, but with the waves, this is going to help a lot. And plus, you put the block debuffs up for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. So again, ice golems, dragons, wherever else you go into that has a lot of debuffs that they're going to apply, you get the block debuffs up. Pretty nice. And then she revives all allies with 70% HP and places a veil buff on these allies except for her. And then places a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Now that's insane. She's resurrecting everybody to almost full HP. She's placing Veil on them so Veil won't drop off until they actually do a move that does damage, I believe, or does an attack. I'll have to look back up about Veil and Perfect Veil. But then she places the continuous heals as well on them for 2 turns, and that's only on a 4-turn cooldown to bring everybody back. And then she also has a passive that decreased the damage taken by all allies from AoE attacks by 25%, 15% from bosses, and decrease the damage taken by all allies from AoE attacks by 40% if an ally is under Veil buff, 25% for bosses. That's crazy. That's pretty crazy. So she's got a lot of things to protect your guys, to heal your guys, to hide them, to revive them all for almost with 70% HP, and then all these buffs, the Veil buffs and the Perfect Veil buffs she's gonna put on, they're taking less damage from AoE. She's pretty cool. And then of course we can push up her damage with the defense. It's only single target. She's only going to do damage on her skill 1, but you could still put out the damage with her and make her very survivable. So I like her as well. Now we're going to get into so this is the epic defense based champion. that you need for the Brachus fusion. Now, I'm not going to do the fusion. I'll talk about that later in another episode tonight, but let's talk about her. So she is an amazing epic. She's probably almost up there with a legendary epic. Attack when enemy damage is proportionate to this champion's current HP, but it's based on defense. So I guess when it says stuff like this, I don't know if that means if she has a higher HP, she does more damage, or if she has lower HP, she does more damage. I would think proportional to her current HP would mean that if she has higher HP, she'll do more damage, but it's still going to be based off of defense. It's just your HP percentage. So it doesn't matter how much HP you actually totally have, but as long as it's near 100%, as it goes down 19%, 80% of it, you're going to do less damage, but still a really cool move. And then her skill 2, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance to place a block buffs debuff for 3 turns on everybody. So attacks all enemies, and then she can place a block buffs debuff for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown on everybody. And it does damage based off of defense. So this is going to hit hard. She's going to be super survivable, and then she's going to block buffs on all the enemies for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown, as long as it doesn't get resisted, right? But she's void. Very cool. Her skill 3, 5-turn cooldown, but it attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance to place a provoke for 2 turns, and places an unkillable buff on this champion for 2 turns, places a block cooldown skills debuff on this champion for 5 turns, and then the block cooldown skill debuff cannot be resisted or blocked and cannot be removed. Well, that's crazy. So block cooldown skills debuff on this champion for 5 turns, and it cannot be resisted, blocked, or cannot be removed. So I guess that's where she gets her drawback, right? So for 5 turns, she's not going to be able to do anything. So if you want to open with this, you got to be ready. You got to be ready to know that you're only going to be doing your skill 1 after that. You're not going to be placing block buffs on them for 3 turns. You're going to be waiting 5 turns. So she's going to place a block cooldown skills debuff on this champion for 5 turns. So she'll be able to do this again, of course, but it's still crazy. She's going to provoke for 2 turns, which is insane in PvP, right? If you can get a 2-turn provoke up, I mean, they're done. Her speed isn't as high as Molly Tankard, of course, so it just depends. But if you get this up, and then she's got an unkillable buff on her for 2 turns, it's going to be pretty cool. But then it cannot be this buff. I don't know. I guess if you take another wave, if you beat a wave, I'm sure when you go to the next wave, it's not going to be there. It's going to fall off for sure then. So you'll be able to do this AoE and block buffs for 3 turns. I don't know. It just depends on who you're fighting, right? If you're fighting somebody, maybe you want to do this one. Maybe I've got Molly in there, and then I'm going to do this move instead. But she's pretty cool. She is very, very powerful for an epic void. Very strong. All right, let's get it. We don't have time. I'm talking about these too much. We've got a Dark Elf legendary to look at. Who do we have here? Let's see. This one. Lanakis the Chosen is an attack-based champion. Attacks one enemy, places a continuous heal buff on this champion for 1 turn if they critical, and then teams up with 3 random allies on the skill 2 and attacks 1 enemy. The allies joining the attack will only use their default skills, fills the turn meter of all allies by 30%, and increase the duration of all ally buffs by 1 on a 4-turn cooldown. That's pretty cool that they all come into attack, and depending on what the turn meter is at, it's going to increase it by 30%. Even if they're 100, they'll go to 130% and maybe overtake somebody else. So being that you all go in and attack, or 3 random allies go in and attack, and that their turn meter gets increased is pretty strong. And then increase the duration of any ally buffs on them by 1. Now, I'm sure it's not going to increase unkillable, the other things that used to be increasable but can't now. I'm sure it won't do that, but we're going to have to test it because you never know. Sometimes they miss those things, so we're going to have to test that out. Also places an increased crit rate and increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns, and then has a chance to grant an extra turn. If this granted an extra turn, everything about this champion I like. It's a legendary, so being that it's a legendary, it needs to have more. Like this legendary has this move that's okay. That's nice, right? It's good. It's on a 4-turn cooldown, and then it can place continuous heal. But remember, if this was an epic, I'd be okay, no problem for this. But this is a legendary that it's just going to increase your attack and your crit for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, and only has a 30, 40, 50% chance to take an extra turn after this. So basically, I don't know about this legendary. I like these 2 moves. This 3rd move really needs to be 100%. I don't know why they would have these other strong legendaries come out and then kind of take away from her on that. So let's go to Undead. We have another one over here. Undead, where are you? This guy. So Suzerain, Katoon, something like that. So this guy attacks all enemies on a skill 1, has a, what, 50% chance to place the 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Very strong. If you can attack all enemies on your skill 1 and have a high chance to place the strongest decreased speed, that is very good. And then his skill 2 attacks all enemies on a 4-turn cooldown and has a 80% chance to place, this one I read earlier and it didn't really make sense. So it has an 80% chance to place the 25% weaken debuff on them. Now, if you don't place that weaken debuff, it places a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns if the weaken debuff is not placed. That should kind of be switched around. There's no situation ever that I would want a weaken debuff over a decreased defense debuff. There's not any place ever. Now, this guy is a legendary, so his skill 1 is cool. His skill 2 is kind of cool, but if you apply those weakens, then this is a skill I would not want to max out then. Because look, he's got a 50% chance to apply the 25% weaken. And then it goes up to an 80% chance. I want to keep it at a 50% chance so it doesn't apply the weaken very often. And then we get that decreased defense up. Because the decreased defense, if it was flip-flop, this would be perfect. If it was flipped around, I think this guy would be great. And then on a skill 3, 4-turn cooldown, removes shields, block damage, and unkillable buffs from all enemies, then attacks them and places the 100% heal reduction buff on all enemies, debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. This cannot be resisted. I like that it can't be resisted. I like that this is more of a PvP thing. You come in there and you remove all these. You give them the ability where they can't heal. But this one right here doesn't make a lot of sense for PvP, and this one does. This one's pretty cool for PvP. And then his aura is attack, increases all attack by 33% in all battles. Very strong. So I think this guy is pretty nice. I'm going to run him. If I got this guy, I would run him with stun artifacts maybe. And I think in PvE he would do really, really well. But I don't know. That's weird. It's weird to me that they have his move that way. Undead. So there's an uncommon here that we got in Undead as well. This guy, the Dead Crusader. Based on defense, attacks one enemy on a skill 1. His skill 2 attacks all enemies and has a 75% chance of placing the poison debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. So that's pretty cool that there's an 3-turn cooldown AoE based off of defense and has a chance to place the 2.5% poison debuff on enemies. And he's an uncommon. So he has pretty decent defense. The rest of his stats aren't that great, but you know, you could work with it. If you had to play this uncommon, you could. I don't know where you would use him since it's the weaker version of poison. It's an AoE. It's on a 3-turn cooldown, but not bad for an uncommon, right? He's not that bad. Let's go to Lizardman. We've got another Lego over here. I think they messed up how they had this guy as an epic, I thought, in the other stuff. But look at this turtle. This lizard turtle. He's pretty insane, and he's got an insane kit. So he's got really high HP, super high defense, right up there with the Valkyrie, I think. And he does damage based off of defense. Skill 1, attacks all enemies again based off of defense. Has a 50% chance to place the 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, which is what we just saw. But this guy is off of defense, not an attack. Then a skill 2, attacks all enemies on a 3-turn cooldown. Places a 50% ally protect buff on all allies except for this champion. Places 2 continuous heal buffs on this champion for 1 turn. And then increase the duration of all ally buffs for 1 turn based off of defense. Crazy. So he's doing a lot of stuff here. He's got a 3-turn cooldown to attack all enemies based off of defense. Place an ally protect on all allies except for him, of course. Place a 2-turn 15% continuous heal buff on himself. And then increase the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. And again, I'm sure this is not going to increase unkillable. This is not going to increase, you know, the other things, the block damage, the other stuff that where we can make it easier to make an unkillable comp that they changed a while ago. I'm sure it will not affect that, but we'll need to test it out. So already this guy's got a skill 1 that attacks lower speed based off of defense. He's got really high defense. He's got attacks all enemies and does this other crazy stuff on a skill 2 on a 3-turn cooldown based off of defense. And then his skill 3 on a 3-turn cooldown maxed out places a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn, places a 60% increased defense buff on all champions for 2 turns, and places a 30% increased speed buff on all champions except this champions for 2 turn on a 3-turn cooldown. So this guy is pretty much, and he's void. This guy is pretty much really insane. And then he has a passive at the start of each round, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 50% of his max HP. Now this is, at first I thought this was going to be really overpowered, and it is. It's still overpowered, but it's at the start of each round. So if you go into spiders, it's just going to happen 1 time. If you go into PvP, it's just going to be at the initial start of the PvP, which my seer is going to love to strip it off of him. I don't mind that. It's Still super, super strong though. So even at the start of a round, that means each wave, that means right at the boss, you'll get it that first time. But it's not going to be every turn. It's not every turn. It's only the start of each round. Still, in PvP, this could be really strong if the other team doesn't have a way to remove it. And then also has a 75%, 100% chance to place a 60% decrease defense debuff and a 50% decrease attack buff on the attacker for one turn, one hit. So that's crazy. Has a 100% chance once it's maxed out to place the decreased defense debuff and attack debuff on the attacker for one turn, one hit. So wow. So he can provoke on a skill 3 on a 3-turn cooldown, give the increased defense, increased speed to everybody except for himself for the speed. And then whenever he's attacked, he's going to lower your defense and your attack. Wow, this guy is nuts. He's the craziest legendary I've seen today, even though I really like all the demon spawn stuff. This guy's pretty insane, and his stats go to support it. He's going to be able to, he's just a triple threat, right? He can do insane damage. His skill 1 is AoE, slows you down. Skill 2, ally protect, as well as heal himself and increase the duration of any buffs on your allies. And then his skill 3 provokes, does increased defense to everybody, increased speed to everybody else. And then his passive, you start out with the 50% of his max HP as a shield. And then whenever he's attacked, he decreases your defense and your attack, 60% and 50%. This guy's nuts, really nuts. Chris the Ageless, I like him. So anybody who gets him, congratulations. You have a pretty insane person there. So there's another rare that was brought out too. Here we go. So this guy is just a reskin of a lot of the ones we've seen here in Lizardman. He attacks one enemy 2 times, has a chance to place a small poison for 2 turns on a skill 1, and then fills the turn meter of all allies by 50% and places a 15% increased speed buff for 2 turns on a skill 2 on a 3-turn cooldown. So a small version of Apothecary, a small version of, Golden Reaper. It's the 15% increased speed instead of the 30% increased speed. But still, I mean, his skill 1 is attacking one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a chance to place the smaller version of the poison. And then his skill 3 revives an ally with 30% HP, then fills their turn meter by 30% on a 5-turn cooldown. And his aura is 15% speed in arena. So, I don't know. For a free-to-play account, this guy looks pretty cool. I mean, he can increase your speed and turn meter. He can revive somebody. And he can also apply the smaller versions of poison on a skill 1. So I could see, and he's got good stats. He's got good HP. He's got good defense. Everything else to keep him alive. And he's void. So I could see him being used somewhere, especially on a free-to-play account. So we have Skinwalkers next. Man, there's so many of them to go over. Skinwalker's got a new epic, right? Yes, this guy. He's part of the fusion. He actually didn't look too bad, but now after looking at everybody else, especially that ageless turtle, this guy attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 40% chance to steal a random buff, but his damage is based off of HP. That's his skill 1. His skill 2 attacks one enemy, ignores the target's defense if they have no active buffs. So that's on a 4-turn cooldown. I'm sure that can hit really hard. If you ignore defense, it's going to hit hard. And that's as long as they don't have any active buffs. So you could always strip first before you go in there and then hit him up with this guy. His skill 1 can also steal buffs, and then his passive has a 50% chance of removing one random buff from the attacker when hit occurs once per hit. Counterattacks the attacker if they have no active buffs. That's pretty cool. I like that he has a chance to counterattack and then hit you with this one that steals buffs. And then also, he has a 50% chance of removing a random buff when attacked. Occurs once per hit. So if you're somebody that's going to hit 3 times in one attack, or 6 times in one of attacks like Brachus, then each time I guess he's got a chance to remove a buff from you. So that's pretty interesting. He's an epic. I don't know where I'd actually play him, but I'm sure you'd find some spots to play him. He's not a bad epic. He's pretty good. The rest of them are pretty weak champions. We've got Banner Lords up here, which Banner Lords are all pretty crazy bad. So we've got more bad things than Banner Lords. We've got a rare, an uncommon, and 2 uncommons. Let's see. What rare do we have? We have this guy right here. Another old looking crossbow man who attacks one enemy, has a chance to increase the duration of all debuffs by 1 turn. So he's got a 15% chance to increase all debuffs. His stats are terrible. His HP and his defense are pretty low. He's not going to survive much at all. You're not going to make him attack heavy, that's for sure. And then his skill 2 attacks one enemy, has a chance to place the increased speed buff on this champion for 2 turns if it's a critical. So if it's a critical, he's going to go faster. This is on a 4-turn cooldown, way too long. That should be at least a 3-turn cooldown. and attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 50%, 75% chance to place a small poison debuff for 2 turns. Now this guy's rare, right? And Kale has like attacks so many times and places a high poison, and then this thing is on a long cooldown and he has to crit, and then this one has a chance to increase all debuffs by 1 turn. Yeah, increase all debuffs is pretty strong. I get that, but this guy's not going to see any play anywhere. I mean, I just don't see him. I don't see him being used even on a free-to-play account. I really wouldn't level him up. So we have 2 uncommons here. These guys looked okay. So this one attacks one enemy, has a chance to place decreased accuracy. Maybe it wasn't this part. Places increased defense on all allies for 2 turns on a 2-turn cooldown. So the Word Bearer. It's an uncommon. I mean, not bad for an uncommon, right? And then we've got another uncommon over here. That's Crazy Eyes. Look, there he is. Mr. Crazy Eyes. I don't even... He looks like he's blind. He attacks all enemies on a skill 1 based off of defense. And then he places an ally protect buff on one ally with the lowest HP for 2 turns, and then he gets another turn. So he's always going to attack with a skill 1 AoE, and then he's going to protect somebody 25%. He's going to take 25% of that damage. So he's got good defense of almost 13,000. 1,300. So not bad for an uncommon. I actually kind of want to play this guy to see what kind of damage he can do on his AoE attack here, and see if we can use him somewhere. So then we've only got a Barbarian common and an Orc rare left. Good, because my voice is going out big time. I've actually had to cut in between this video to take some medicine because it is going out. This is way too much talking right now. We've got Barbarians going over here to this guy. Looks pretty cool. He's a shredder. He attacks one enemy and then can place the heal reduction. Attacks one enemy, can place weaken, and attacks one enemy and can place block cooldown debuff. Now all of its attack one enemy, his HP is miserable at 11,565. So I don't see this guy's going to get a lot of play anywhere. All single target. They all do moderately interesting things. They're only 1 hit too. If it was like 3 attacks here, 3 attacks here, 3 attacks here, maybe we could bring him into Fire Knight for something. But right now he doesn't look like he's going to be good for anything. And then we have a Barbarian common here. Here he is. I don't know why we need a bully in the game, but we've got a bully that looks like Shield Guard. Why'd they rip Shield Guard off? Not cool, guys. Attack one enemy, damage based off of defense. That is it. That's everybody. So if you didn't know, I love everything in Demon Spawns. They look great. And that turtle is insane. Turtle is really insane. And Demon Spawn, where'd they go? Demon Spawn, I still really like this guy. I don't like the reskin, and I really like the new girl. She's cool. Where's she at? This girl looks really interesting with what she can do. And of course, the turtle and this girl right here that we use for the fusion, she looks like she's really interesting. This 5-turn block cooldown skills on her is pretty crazy, but the skill is really strong. I like how they gave her such a strong skill, but then gave her a really strong drawback to it as well. This skill right here, though, is super strong. You could just do this over and over and over again to block buffs and do fairly well with it. Damage based off of defense. And who was the turtle was in Lizardman, of course. So this guy, I don't even, why does he have look at his banner. No, I guess when they're grayed out, that's what they look like. Whoops. So this legendary Krisk the Ageless is pretty insane. I would love to pull this guy. Of course, who wouldn't? He's a void. So right now is the time to summon. We have the double void going on right now. Thank you so much for watching all. I will talk to you all in a video soon about the fusion and what events we have going on. I'll see you then.